terms of what we're trying to accomplish today. So, the purpose is you might be interested in Teams Phone. You might have heard about it, or maybe you just implemented it or you're considering implementing it. And you might want to know a little bit more around what are some things to consider as I'm actively going through that process, right? We'll be talking about cost, we'll be talking about capabilities, we'll be talking even about strategically, maybe you want one of these services, maybe you don't, right? Because as I'll get into later today, one of the great things about Microsoft Teams Phone is I like to say it meets you where you are as an organization. So, there's going to be some different decisions that you have to make as a team, and ultimately, whatever makes the most sense, I suggest you go with that. So, with that being said, I did want to introduce Donna from OnPar. She is here with us, and she's going to be my tech wizard, so to speak. Be weaving her into the conversation as I have questions, just to bring a little bit more color and insights with her, experience working here in the channel. So, Donna, I don't know if you want to give a quick introduction for everybody. I think it's a great idea.
Sure. Thanks, Andreas. I'm Donna Hall, and I'm the Director of Business Development here at OnPar. And we are a large Microsoft partner implementing all of the Microsoft stack, including the Microsoft Teams Phone. There has been a lot of interest in the Microsoft Teams Phone since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
With Teams coming out, and it's just, it really has taken off from there. Microsoft is putting a lot of development into it, and it's a good phone system. I mean, it works great. It integrates with your Outlook. It integrates with Teams Chat and all the other products, and there's a lot of third-party products that integrate with it as well. So we appreciate you being here and look forward to having some further conversations with all of you in the future if you want to implement Microsoft Teams Phone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. So, one of the things I do want to just level set with everybody here. This is a conversation, okay? I've obviously got my slides here just to keep me honest, so to speak, in terms of the information that I want to cover. But I really think these presentations come to life when you guys have some insights or some questions or some thoughts that you want to share with the group. So, this is an open invitation. Everybody here, please feel free at any point in time. If you've got a question about some specific features, capabilities, this is why I have Donna here. She's the expert. And so, she's more than happy to answer some of those questions and help you through this process. Now, throughout the presentation, I will also be taking the liberty of asking some questions myself. And I'm going to start here right now. I'm going to go ahead and launch my first poll, because this is going to give us some context around who everybody is here today. And that question is, do you currently have Teams Phone deployed for your organization? Go ahead and take a moment and answer that poll for me. And this is going to help, give me an understanding of where you are in this journey. Some of us may be considering it. Some of us maybe not. A lot of us, I'm assuming, already have Teams, but we're thinking about potentially utilizing Teams Phone. No, every answer is safe. As an anonymous poll, feel free to answer. So far, which is very, very exciting to see, because I think this is the people that will benefit the most. You don't have phone today, but you already have Teams. Okay, that is very cool to see. And I'll actually use that as a segue here as we get started with the presentation, because I think the first thing to understand about Teams Phone, Donna alluded to it a little bit earlier when she was talking about the explosion after COVID. One of the primary things is it's just easier to implement with your current technology stack. Reason being, I want to say the statistic is 90+% of businesses utilize some type of Microsoft service, right? And specifically, the marquee product right now on the market is Microsoft Teams, right? Why is that the case? Well, if a lot of you guys are already using it, then you understand, right? It revolutionized collaboration. It revolutionized flexibility, right? As opposed to having an on-premises server and then having to have a completely separate application for messaging and then a completely separate application like Skype for video conferencing. Microsoft was able to bundle these services into one product line, one product set, I should say, right? And that's ultimately where Microsoft Teams came from, right? It's that all-in-one collaboration solution that you can utilize for your business. Now, I don't know the exact statistic on this, but just based on all the conversations I've had over the years working here in this industry, I want to say it is a sizable percentage. Donna, maybe I'll ask you, when people are utilizing Teams, would you say the majority of them have the phone system already? In my experience, the majority do not. I don't know if you see that any different.
They do not. Most of them are using, they may have an old on-premise, or they may have some sort of hosted solution, and they're using about 20% of those features in a hosted solution that's costing them, anywhere from $30, $35 per user per month. And
Mhm.
they realize they're just not using those, nor do they need them. And so a lot of times people come to us and wanting to know what the features are in Teams Phone, and it's exactly what they need, and it's a lot cheaper, and they feel good about it. We do a proof of concept with them to make sure it's going to work for their business, and they're off and running.
I love it. Yeah, so I'm glad we see it that we've had a similar experience, because it seems to me like whether it has to do with just comfort, you've used this phone system for so many years, or it has to do with just I don't know what I don't know. Organizations are typically overspending, and they have, to Donna's point, capabilities that are just not necessary for their business, right? And so this is where weaving in Microsoft Teams Phone as a part of your Teams implementation is where I really think you can see a lot of the benefits and use cases for your business. Now, I'm putting on the screen here just so you can see a Gartner Magic Quadrant for unified communications as a service platforms. You'll notice here in the top right, who's one of the primary leaders? Microsoft. Okay. The reason for that is because, again, they built this Teams platform and they integrated phone capabilities into that holistically, right? So beyond just the document storage and the messaging through chat and the ability to video conference like we're doing today, or host webinars like we are right now, you can also now weave in that phone capability, right? And so I'll move to the next line here so you can see what are the primary benefits of this. Well, I really think number one is ease of use, okay? And that's unifying the services under one platform, okay? Um, your organization now has people on staff who don't have to go through the process of utilizing 4 or 5 different apps for a variety of different uses, right? You have the ability to have everything in under one umbrella, and so that just makes things a lot easier. It helps people be more productive, and it's just easier to use, right? I also think, given the fact that Teams is so easily scalable, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you've got an on-premises phone system, you've got to do all the installation, all the wiring, all these different things, especially when you're adding new lines. The ability for you to quickly move up and move down in terms of the number of users and the number of licenses that you need make this system run a lot easier, as a whole. So just kind of want you to understand that that's Microsoft's angle. They're trying to take this from the perspective of I've got an organization today that is using 5 different applications for 5 different features of their business work. How can I bring that under one umbrella to, number one, make it easy, make it more productive, and then also potentially get bundling savings, right? If you've got 3 different insurance providers for 3 different services and you compare that to the cost of one provider for all 3 of them bundled, the bundled discount's typically going to be a pretty good cost saving. So, that's the whole idea behind unified communications as a service. How can we make Teams that one-stop platform for that? Now, before we continue moving on, I'd love to bring Donna back in this conversation to maybe give a little bit of perspective on why customers are typically moving to Teams Phone. I don't know, Donna, if you can give me maybe some comments, maybe your top couple reasons that you see people deciding to ultimately make that shift to adopting Teams Phone.
Yeah, sure. So basically, when we have clients coming to us, or we're out trying to sell the services, it is a matter of cost savings typically in
Okay.
that and remote workers. People are working from everywhere today. And if they don't have to have a handset on their desk, if they can just use a headset and use the app, they pick up their laptop and they go to the beach, and they're working from a hotel room, and in the afternoon they can go be with their family or whatever, and nobody's none the wiser, because you can get calls on your mobile, on the mobile device. And when you're making those calls out from your mobile device from the app, it looks like you're sitting in the office because it's coming from your office number. So,
Mm-hmm.
those things are driving people to implement Teams. And also, with it being, like you said before, it being under that Microsoft ecostructure, it's all in one place. So you've got people chatting on Teams. You've got people storing files on Teams and using Teams as really their, a very intricate part of their business and one of their main business applications. So why not go ahead and tie your phones into that as well?
Absolutely. I think that's great context. I appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome. And what I'll do now is I'm going to ask everybody here today. I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll. Donna brought up some great points: cost savings, right? Ease of use, mobility, flexibility. What's your primary consideration? I'm curious as a group where you guys stand. Let me know what you guys think. My personal experience, just from having a lot of these conversations, same as Donna, it seems to me like most people see this as a way to save a bunch of money. So, a lot of times money can be a big motivator. And so people are willing to make that investment and at least try it out and see what it looks like. So I'm gonna give everybody a moment there to go ahead and answer that. In the meantime, what I'm gonna do is I'm now gonna go ahead and actually join the meeting from my phone, because before we get into some of the cost considerations, some of those other different things, I want to actually show you what it looks like. Okay, I want you to see both from the desktop experience and the mobile experience how Teams Phone will ultimately look for your organization. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this. Righty, and I'm going to move first my desktop over. Okay, so what I want you guys to see, and I'm sure again you guys have seen this before if you already have Teams, but I just want you to see what it looks like. Okay, so right, you've got your activity, you've got your chat function, your Teams, right? These are all the ancillary capabilities that are built into this platform that you already use today, or seems like most of us are already using today. Now, that said, what about this calling feature? Well, that's what we're checking out right here. So my service right here, we actually have already Teams built into this account. Okay, and what you'll notice, if I've got a work number here that's associated, that's been given to me, this is completely separate from my actual phone number. Okay, there's a work phone number that was just generated for me very easily. I've got a dial pad here where I can call any number that I like. You'll notice on the bottom left-hand side, I can manage whether or not I forward something to voicemail. I can also manage if I've got, actually, I'll just go to the settings to show you here. So if you look here, if I want to forward my calls, I can do that. If I want it to ring to somebody else or redirect it to voicemail, if I wanted to manage a delegate, let's say I'm out for a week on vacation so that they could get all the calls forwarded directly to them, all something that you can manage here from your personal interface with Teams calling. Now, if I come back to the calling, you also see I've got a history. I can see missed calls. I can see incoming calls. And I've also got voicemails that come in here as well. Now, one of the things that's actually really cool that I enjoy is voicemails use AI to get automatically transcribed. So, sometimes it's just a hassle to have to listen to somebody speak. It's much easier just to read a paragraph of what somebody left as a message. So I got an email the other day because somebody left me a voicemail and it had the transcription of what that voicemail actually said. I thought that was really, really cool. So just a cool little bonus feature if you didn't know, all part of this platform. I can also add speed downs for primary contacts, and I can also go ahead and, include contacts from my personal phone number into Teams if I wanted to. Now, me personally, I didn't do that, but you can. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I will join here from my phone.
Whatever real quick tell.
Let me know if you guys can hear me. We're good. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen from my phone. Okay, looks like you guys can see that now. So you'll see the flexibility of Teams, right? If I was mobile, you guys already know this, but I could be taking this from my phone in the car, right? Now, thank you, Donna. Now, the best part about this in terms of the calling, right? If I come here and I go to my calling, take a look at this. This is this. It looks almost the exact same as you see on the desktop, right? But what's really cool about this is I got my voicemail here in the corner. I've got access to contacts, like I mentioned, if you wanted to. I don't personally. I can go ahead and have a recents, any shared lines I have with somebody on my team. And if I wanted to go ahead and start a new phone call, I'd click on this icon. And just like you have on your phone, you've got a dial pad here where you can go ahead and make that phone call if you need to. Now, one of the really cool pieces of this that I think is pretty awesome is that when you receive incoming phone calls, it comes directly to your phone, but through Teams, right? So somebody's calling you and it looks like it's just a phone call, but it's actually somebody just calling your Teams number, and it's basically giving you a notification on your phone so that it's easier for you to answer it. Now, why does that matter? Well, that matters because as you're going through the process of, let's say you're on a business trip or you're working from home, like Donna mentioned, you're able to access people from anywhere, right? They can call you as long as they have your phone number and you have access to the internet, you're available, right? And so that ease of use, that flexibility, I really want to hammer that point because that's something that, especially if you've got an on-premises phone system today, you probably don't have access to. So, hopefully this helps bring together some thoughts in terms of how this would look for you. Again, whether it's mobile, whether it's desktop, whether it's on a completely different computer, assuming you don't have certain security things in place, where you just have access to Teams through the web, you can also do it there. So it's just the flexibility is phenomenal. And I don't know, Donna, if you've got any other thoughts that you wanted to share that maybe I missed, but I think that's really one of the hallmarks of this product that makes it attractive compared to a lot of things there on the market.
Most definitely. The flexibility of adding a user and removing a user if you're on the month-to-month plan with licenses from Microsoft is, it's phenomenal. You can add, well, even if you're on the yearly plan, it's fine too. You'll just have an extra license. But switching licenses around, getting somebody up and running on, when a new employee comes on, onboarding a new employee, it's just so easy. And it once you do the migration and get the setup and get it working the way you want it, it's fairly, it's just there and works. It's fairly hands off after that.
Absolutely. So hopefully you understand the motivation as to why you might want to be doing some of these things when it comes to productivity, when it comes to capabilities. But like a lot of us, and like I meant, like we've been talking about earlier, you might be like solely focused on what are the dollars and cents here, right? Like why does this matter to me? So I just wanted to have an open conversation here, just some things to consider, because obviously it depends what you're doing today. A lot of times you'll have an organization who's got an aging on-premises phone system that they're looking to upgrade. So they already understand that they're going to be making this decision. And so they've already taken some of these things into account, but maybe you haven't, right? And so this is why I wanted to share, give a little bit more context here. So number one, hardware. Okay, this goes both for the installation, if you've got an on-premises phone system, and the actual phones themselves, right? Teams is compatible with a lot of different phone systems. I'll put a link later on today when we get to the slide for some of the eligible devices that are already enrolled with Teams. So if you want a phone and you need a phone, you want to use a phone, it's available. It's a possibility, but it's not necessary, right? I can do this like I showed you from my phone. I can do it from my computer. And so you don't have to spend that money to actually get that installed and available for your team, right? So that's a cost savings. Then you've got maintenance, right? If you've got an on-prem system, there's maintenance things that you got to consider. There's repairs, there's upgrades. A phone, breaks. You got to go fix that, right? So these are just ancillary costs that you 100% will not have to deal with when you go ahead and use Microsoft Teams Phone. Managed services, right? If you've got support today with your current provider and you're happy with it, awesome. There's actually a way to keep them on and still utilize the functionality and the ease of use, flexibility. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But if that's not the case and you're not very happy with it and you just want to consider, cutting down on that, that's something that you need to consider, right? How much am I paying for those services as ongoing support to manage this implementation? Then obviously you've got the licenses that you have to purchase, whether that's with another provider, whether that's Microsoft that we'll be talking about a little bit later today. And then any additional usage costs, whether that's long distance or international calling. Important to note, with the basic plan inside of Microsoft, it's meant for domestic calling, but there's absolutely an add-on feature where you can buy a certain amount of minutes for international calling, or you can go ahead and actually buy the minute, almost like a use as you go, so to speak, for your company. So it's very flexible, meant to meet you where you are, as I said previously, based on what you're looking to do. Now, I like to bring in evidence as much as possible, just so that everybody, can have something to take away from this. And I encourage you, maybe Donna, when we follow up, we can go ahead and actually send them this entire report from Forrester, because I found it incredibly insightful. And what they did essentially is they took some examples of both enterprise and SMB organizations, and they took a lot of those cost considerations from the previous slide, where the installation, the hardware, the management, the licensing, all those different costs. And they essentially took a few examples and they did some calculations to understand, number one, what was the ROI on ultimately upgrading or implementing Microsoft Teams Phone, and what are some of the potential cost benefits that are associated with that, right? So what you can see here from a cash flow analysis for SMB specifically, they averaged 146% ROI and a payback period of less than 6 months. Now, am I going to guarantee that's the case for you? No, absolutely not. I would never do anything like that. But I mean, proof is in the pudding. I encourage you to go read it. And I think this ultimately comes down from what we were talking about previously, right? It's outdated systems, it's the installation, it's potentially your own team's time that it takes to support something that you may not have a full grasp on. We'll talk about very briefly about the migration process later on today. That could be a part of that conversation, so to speak, meaning, if you've got somebody that's taking time out of their day to go try and manage any type of troubleshooting issues or problems, there's a cost associated with that. And so when we start to quantify that holistically, it makes a lot of sense for most SMBs. And so, I think it's something to consider. Again, I encourage you guys to read it. I thought it was pretty insightful, and I thought that was pretty cool just to kind of bring here in terms of just some raw data to consider. Okay. Now, what about, the nitty gritty here? Like when it comes down to specific numbers, and I'll bring in Donna here in just a second after I kind of go through, what I was able to find in terms of an average cost, because, everybody's going to have different estimations for some of these different things. I'd love to hear Donna's take, because she's, obviously in the trenches every day. But let me give you a little bit of breakdown here in terms of what this is ultimately going to cost your organization. So there's two routes to market, so to speak, with Microsoft Teams Phone. Okay, you're going to have your standard plan where it's just the capability to utilize Teams Phone. What I mean by that is this isn't actually a calling plan. Okay, this is just the ability for you to be able to take and make calls inside of Teams. Okay, it doesn't come with a phone number or anything like that. The reason you might want to do something like this is because you might really, really like your current provider. And I can appreciate that. I understand that. One of the things I'll talk about on the next slide, and Donna actually referenced it a little bit earlier, is Teams isn't the most robust solution on the marketplace today. Okay. It is a very, very good phone, but it doesn't have, a lot of really minute capabilities that a lot of these other providers might have. But again, they're charging you for it, right? And if they're charging you for 100% of those services and you only need 20 to 25% of those, well, guess what? You've got a delta of a lot of spend there that doesn't really make much sense. And so that said, again, meet you where you are. If you love that provider, you want to stick with them, and that's what you want. Teams are only going to cost you $8 a user to actually weave that service into Teams Phone so that you keep all of those benefits and you get the added flexibility and services that comes with having Teams integrated into your Teams environment. Okay. Now, if you wanted to go full service, I get Teams calling capability and I get the calling plan. You can bundle that in for $15 a user. Okay. It's a little shocking sometimes when I see that number because, I mean, you can search this from the web, but vast majority of voice over IP providers, this isn't even all providers, I'm just talking about voice over IP calling plans, they're ranging $20 to $40 a user. Okay. It's relatively close, still more expensive, but it's relatively close to what this service is. But again, that's already other VoIP solutions. When you're talking about on-premises phone systems, those can be dramatically more expensive because some of the things I was talking about earlier today. And so, just right off the bat, again, because you already have access to Teams like a lot of us have here today, when you start playing the game of comparing and contrasting the cost of bundling it here with Teams or separating these services, a lot of times this is where a lot of the meat is in terms of the primary reason or motivations you might have to make that switch. So, Donna, this is where I'd love to bring you back in. Is this, kind of what you're seeing today? Is this roughly close to what you're seeing in terms of cost considerations? And if you have any additional thoughts, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, on a monthly basis, that's what most people are looking at, and a lot of our clients that we've migrated from. I'll just toss out Ring Central because that's one that comes to mind, and they're running about $35, a user. So it's very inexpensive for what you get to be able to receive calls, have auto attendant, and have voicemail, have it transcribed to email. So it's just an affordable system. We do have implementation fees, obviously, to get everything migrated, set up for you. But our part of our services is to migrate from your current provider. If you don't want to use your current provider, your direct routing, if you have an on-premise system and you've got AT&T or something like that as your provider, and you just want to move completely, get the calling plans with Microsoft. We port those numbers and get everything configured for you and work with you to configure it. So there is a fee for that, depending upon the size of your company and how much you want done, that sort of thing. But after the initial implementation fee, this is basically what you're looking at.
And frankly, Donna, that the fee that they'd be paying you, because I've done entire presentations on just that topic. Just to give a little context for everybody, just the topic of the migration itself is an entire conversation. Okay. Whether it's porting the numbers, it's ensuring the functionality is similar, it's making sure that things are set up the way that you're used to having them set up. I mean, it is a monumental task at times. And if you don't have ways to do that in an automated fashion, what's going to ultimately happen is a 1 to 2 month migration is going to turn into 6 to 12 months. So then start considering how much more money you're spending over that time and how much time and energy your team is spending to try and do that themselves. I've seen that blow up in a lot of customer spaces just because they want to handle it. I can appreciate that. I 100% do, but sometimes that can be a complex process. And I'm sure, Donna, you probably agree with that, a lot of times if you try and handle it yourself and you don't know what you're doing, it can cause a lot of issues.
It can, and we've seen people have issues with that, and especially when porting the numbers. Porting the numbers is a it's it, it's a complicated situation um, if you haven't done it, and the phone companies are very difficult to work with to port numbers, and we just handle all that from start to finish, and um, we schedule all of it. We do so you know exactly when the cutover is happening. Your cutover time is very minimal. Typically, we'll cut somebody over. We'll cut them over during lunch, 12 to 1, because Microsoft, that's the only time they allow us to cut over is between the hours of 8 to 5. So we try to do
Hmm.
it, in an hour time frame, and the downtime is so minimal for because we plan it all so well. So if
I
you've
love it.
never ported numbers, or if you haven't ported them in a while, it's not a fun task. So you just have to, and a lot of times people think their numbers are all in one location, and we find out that they're not, that they
Hmm.
may have had people come from previous backgrounds, and they maybe they've only been there 6 months, and the IT person before that had numbers in 3 different locations,
Exactly.
so and you don't want to lose those numbers, because if you've got phone numbers, typically someone has published those or using them. So you want to make sure you get all of your numbers ported from all the locations.
And Donna, to be fair to all the other providers out there, because again, you know, for some organizations, maybe it's not something that they want to do. Maybe they want to keep their existing system. Do you have any context maybe for the group here as to why somebody might want to stay with Cisco, let's say, like you were mentioning, or Ring Central as opposed to Teams Phone? Just maybe to give some insights as somebody's maybe thinking through what makes the most sense for me.
Well, sometimes people are under a contract and they didn't realize it, and
Hmm.
so they have to stay because somebody in their organization just signed a 3-year agreement, and they didn't
Mhm.
realize that. So that's one. The other is they just like that. They feel like Teams Phone hasn't been around that long. As you know. A lot of what we hear is, well, I had to reboot my computer every other hour. Am I going to have to reboot my phone? That sort of
Yeah.
thing. And I can tell you that in the beginning, when Teams phones first came out, they didn't have their own calling plans. They were using third-party solutions, and it was terrible. We were on it, and we had constant, we felt like a guinea pig. We had constant issues, and this was probably 7, 8 years ago, when we were using that third-party solution. Once Microsoft came out with their calling plans, um, and I'll tell you, in the beginning, we did not even want to sell it because it was so unstable. Once Microsoft came out with their own calling plans and we got on that, we didn't have any other issues. We have minimal downtime. We have minimal problems out of it. I mean, I can't tell you the last time that we've had a phone outage. So, it's like every other thing. It's technology. It's you're going to have some hiccups, but Microsoft has done a very good job of ramping up uh, the infrastructure internally in their data centers to handle the volume.
Mm. No, I love that. Yeah, because I think it's always important to just paint the whole picture, right? Because like Donna talks about, whatever makes the most sense for your organization is what we're ultimately going to do for you, right? So here, just I'm listing out some pros and some cons as to maybe some things to consider with Teams Phone. My primary pros: you maximize your Microsoft investment, right? When it comes to utilizing Teams, all these other applications from one platform makes things run a lot smoother and a lot easier, right? That unification of your communication channels, it's all about efficiency and ease of use. Flexibility, right? If you're on the phone, if you're on the road, if you're on your computer, if you're wherever you are, Teams is available to you. We talked about cost considerations. Definitely something to consider as you're, considering this switch. And then ultimately, you don't need hardware either. But again, it is available if you need it. One of the other things too, I'll just kind of emphasize again is that scalability, because I didn't touch on that too much. Uh, Once you have Teams Phone enabled and it's ready to go, It is very, very simple. Up and down. You want to add 2 users, you want to subtract 2 users, and just those changes. It is a seamless process. And when we talk about scalability, if you've got a huge growth inside of your business and you need to add 10 lines, that's definitely possible. 100 lines, whatever it is, it's something that is very manageable. Now, what are some things on the other side maybe to consider? Well, if you're purchasing a Microsoft calling plan, you need an internet connection, right? So if that's something that keeps you up at night, that your internet needs to be available, maybe you stick with your current provider and you just use Teams Phone, the $8 plan, so that you have it accessible inside of your Teams environment. Again, back to calling features, it's not going to be as robust as some of these other providers. These other providers are charging you 100 other different service fees because they've built out their whole business on that. And so I really think, especially for the organizations that are looking to utilize a phone system that's simple, easy to use, but still very functional, Teams makes total sense, right? If you got very specific needs, maybe we consider some other options. We talk through it. I mean, that's the whole idea. If you don't want to deal with Microsoft support, OnPar is here to help. I just want to mention that, but I know there is some, bad connotations at times with getting access to support from Microsoft. It's a very large organization, right? And then ultimately, I'm going to hammer this point one more time: the migration. It's definitely not impossible. It's done every day. We handle things like this all the time. I'm just saying, if you're doing it on your own without any experience, it can be very difficult, time consuming, costly for you as an organization. And so just to kind of list out some pros and some cons, something to think about. I think there's a lot of really good reasons for you to do it, but I also think it's important to holistically look at your business and make sure that we understand and we answer and address any primary issues or questions that you might have. So, question for you here: what does your timeline look like? Is this a project you're looking to do in the next 3 months? Is this over the next 6 months? Are you just thinking about it? Or maybe you're not even planning to migrate, you just want to learn. I don't know. Let us know. Happy to help. Happy to see if there's any way that we can be of service to your organization. I'm going to go ahead and move over here to our last slide here, because I also wanted to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions, okay? What are some commonly asked questions that we get? How does Teams Phone work? Well, it replaces traditional PBX and enables key calling capabilities with cloud-based control system and provides overall telephony workload to Microsoft Teams. What's the calling plan? Well, that's going to be the service where you've got your call, you've got your minutes, you're able to receive and make calls as well. Can I bring my own calling plan? Yes, we talked about that a little bit earlier in this presentation. You can use direct routing, and I believe there's a name for another service as well. Direct connectivity might be the name, where if you want somebody else's service to just be built into Teams, that's absolutely on the table. Can I use existing phone numbers? We get this question all the time. Yes, absolutely. You just need to port those numbers over, and then ultimately Microsoft would become your current service provider. And then when it comes to phones that are supported, let me go ahead and get this link here. I will go ahead and copy this link, because what I want to do is I'll go ahead and put this here in the chat window for everybody. If you're very interested in terms of devices for your Teams environment for calling, feel free to go ahead and take a look. That's where you can see the devices that are currently compatible. But again, absolutely 100% not necessary. So with that said, Donna, I'm going to pass it over to you here. If you've got any closing thoughts, ideas, anything you want to share with the group, and I wanted to then open it up here to everybody else. If you've got any specific questions you want to ask, you got some time here so that we can be of service in any way that makes the most sense. So feel free to go, Donna.
Certainly. So I just wanted to reiterate that we do our due diligence on the front end with you and do a proof of concept to make sure that Teams Phone is going to work for you. We typically, depending upon the size of your organization, we say, let's do a 30-day trial and work with kind of fake numbers that Microsoft will give us and see if it is actually going to work in your environment. And we do that in your Microsoft tenant. So some of the configurations that we've already done, if the proof of concept is acceptable and it does work, then there's a checkbox. Let's move forward. We've already got some of the configuration done, so you don't have to go back and reconfigure everything. So the proof of concept, the money you would spend on the proof of concept is not wasted. But if you're working with a partner that doesn't do that, be really careful, because you want to make sure that this is going to work for you and your organization.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. You've been giving some great insights today. So thanks for sharing all the knowledge. I'll pass it over to everybody here. This is your chance. If you've got any questions for us, if you got a specific question on, the service, maybe that's that you haven't been able to find an answer to online, happy to help. So feel free to just go ahead and come off of mute and ask, or put the question in the chat window, whatever's easiest for you.
Yeah, Andres.
Eric.
We have a lot of lines that we would be porting, a lot of direct dials, so on and so forth, that could be ported, but we also have a number of users that primarily use their cell phone, or users that have a direct dial and a cell phone that we think, okay, let's get rid of the direct dial, no need to port that, just primarily use your cell phone. How do we integrate? Can we integrate the cell phone into essentially the the calling plan? Obviously, it wouldn't become part of the calling plan, but integrated into the team's calling platform or environment.
Very good question. Donna, do you have any specific insights? I have heard that you definitely can do that, but Donna's probably got more experience doing that with customers. So I don't know, Donna, if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yes, you certainly can. There's a free Teams Phone mobile plan, and if you want a phone number associated with it, though, if they don't want to use their mobile number, so if you need a BID or you need a phone number associated with it, then you have to have the full-blown Teams Phone with calling plan, the $15 version.
Well, I think we would want to utilize the existing mobile number, just integrate it. So we wouldn't get the full calling plan for these users. We just want them to have the same benefit as the people that have, have a calling plan number, a direct dial, so to speak.
Right. You could do that. Yes.
Okay.
Great question, Eric. Thank you.
They're basically just placing and receiving calls via their mobile phone number. They just have a Teams Phone mobile app.
Got it. Yeah. So essentially, where you saw my phone number in the Teams app where I was using, that's where their personal number would be, right? And if they just be using it through Teams, essentially, what it would be. Yeah.
Okay, and they can still sit at their desk. It's using the cell phone for the transmission, but they sit at the desk, talk to the teams on the computer as if they, were in a Teams meeting.
Right. Yep.
Exactly.
The meeting part won't change. It's just the calling part. The meeting part and if they're on the internet, none of that really changes. It's just if they needed to make a PSTN call, basically public switch telephone network call, that's where the number comes into play.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the group? More than happy to address them. It's always fun when people have some good questions for us.
I guess we answered them all, Andres.
Hopefully, yeah, I'm hoping we did. I will say, I really appreciate the time. I know 45 minutes, you could be doing, a lot of other different things. So wholeheartedly from the team here at OnPar, we really appreciate your time and dedication. We hope you're able to get some great insights from the session today. And like Donna mentioned, we'll see if there's any way for us to help support you on this journey. I'll stay on here for another couple minutes in case there's any other additional questions. But if you don't have any, feel free to jump off. I'll give you 15 minutes back in your day to go take care of some business. And we're here to help in whatever capacity you need. So have a great rest of your day. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.